One of your, as you mentioned earlier in this, one of your biggest favorite franchises is Kingdom Hearts. I've known that for a long. Like you were big into the series. You listen to the songs all the time. You love playing the games. You love to quote the
God.
games, especially when you put it in your bots. You say like, "Friendship is my power." You're a super fan, basically, is what I'm saying.
Oh,
And
I wish I had the money to be considered a super fan. I'll be right honest with you. I
okay,
wish. Like I mean in my heart and in my mind I'm a super fan, but my pockets say otherwise.
all right. And in spite of Kingdom Hearts' admittedly very complicated story, you still stick
Mhm.
with it. So, and so I
I'm
say
afraid
this,
of what you're gonna ask.
if you would if you were to convince a friend who's never played Kingdom Hearts before, what would be the easiest and hardest thing to sell?
Okay, I've actually attempted this. My best friend, she's a diehard Legend of Zelda fan,
Uh-huh.
and I'm a diehard Kingdom Hearts fan. And we kind of came to the agreement: if I play the Zelda games, will you play Kingdom Hearts? And I tried out Majora's Mask,
Mhm.
and I was like, okay, cool, I get it, I see the appeal. But because it was on her DS, I couldn't just like borrow her DS.
Mhm.
And I wasn't about to buy my own copy if I'm just gonna waste my money and just play it for 2 hours and be like, okay, cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but I have played Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks and the Breath of the Wild game, which
Yeah.
was peak. I loved it.
Right.
So I shared that with her, and then because she doesn't have the PS4 or PS2 rather, to kind of get started, I just said, dude, legit, and this was before Corona,
Right.
BC. I straight up told her, hey, come over and play the game, and I sat her down at my desk, which is where at the time my TV was.
Uh-huh.
And I sat her down, put her on Kingdom Hearts 1, and then I just let her play. And then she's like, "Oh, crap, I see the appeal." And I was like, "Yeah, it's fun." And
Mhm.
she got pretty far, and then it kind of like fell out.
Right.
So, she hasn't continued Kingdom Hearts and I haven't continued Zelda. But my
Yeah.
point being, like, there's the appeal, and what sold her was that the game mechanics were fun and the characters were likable,
Mhm.
and the animation and the cutscenes and the storyline were pretty coherent
Right.
and not difficult to follow. Obviously, there were some things that I had to clarify, like what are the laws that this world takes place in, like what
Yeah.
is a heartless, and yes, I do explain that, but not really all that well until Kingdom Hearts 2, which a lot of people were like, Kingdom Hearts 2 is the best game in the franchise. I'm like, yes, it's very, very good and has set the standard. But there's all these other side title games that are pretty good too.
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of people get really turned off with the fact that there's a lot of console exclusives. So
Yeah.
like that's why I really appreciated it when Square Enix started porting it to all the games on those HD remixes, like 1.5, 2.5, 2.8.
Yeah.
So you can have these games on one console. Like if you had a PS4, for example, which I'm very fortunate to have.
Mhm.
You know, to have them all consolidated, I'll tell you what, it makes playing these games so much easier. And I think that's another selling point, you know? Just the accessibility and the fact that they're just now making it for Xbox console users.
Mhm.
About time. So I think it's just more so having the access rather than the storyline being too convoluted.
Yeah.